There are several important aspects of tuberculosis TB that are often overlooked. 1. Latent TB infection, LTBI. Many people infected with TB bacteria do not feel sick and are not contagious. This is called latent TB. However, latent infection can reactivate years later if immunity weakens. Identifying and treating high-risk latent cases is a major pillar of TB control. 2. TB is curable, but treatment is long. Standard drug-sensitive TB requires at least 6 months of combination antibiotics. Stopping early can lead to relapse or drug resistance. Drug-resistant TB can require 9 to 18 months or longer, with more complex regimens. Drug-resistant TB is a global concern. Multidrug-resistant TB, MDR-TB, does not respond to the two most powerful first-line drugs. Extensively drug-resistant TB, XDR-TB, is even harder to treat. Resistance usually develops due to incomplete or improper treatment. It is a medical and public health threat. 4. TB is linked to other conditions. TB risk increases significantly in people with HIV infection, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, malnutrition, smoking, or heavy alcohol use. Diabetes is particularly relevant in Malaysia and the region, as it increases the risk of active TB. 5. TB is a disease of inequality. TB disproportionately affects lower-income populations, migrant workers, prisoners, and people in crowded housing. Overcrowding and poor ventilation facilitate transmission. Socioeconomic conditions matter as much as medicine. 6. TB does not spread easily through casual contact. Unlike influenza or COVID-19, TB usually requires prolonged close exposure. It is not typically spread by brief contact in open, well-ventilated spaces. 7. Screening and early detection are crucial. Persistent cough for more than 2 to 3 weeks, unexplained weight loss, night sweats, or coughing blood require medical evaluation. Early diagnosis reduces transmission and improves cure rates. 8. BCG vaccination has limits. The BCG vaccine protects children from severe TB, but does not fully prevent adult pulmonary TB. That is why vaccination alone cannot eliminate TB. 9. TB remains one of the world's top infectious killers. Despite being preventable and curable, TB continues to cause over 1 million deaths globally each year. It is not a new disease, but it remains a persistent one. Bottom line, TB is serious, but controllable. The combination of vaccination, early detection, full treatment adherence, good ventilation, and targeted public health policies is what keeps it in check. The danger lies not in panic, but in neglect. Here is the current picture of the tuberculosis TB situation in Malaysia. Current outbreak picture. Malaysia has recorded 3,161 TB cases nationwide in the early part of 2026, with 596 new cases reported in the most recent surveillance week. This represents a rise compared with earlier weeks, when totals were around 2,500 plus cases. Public health experts describe the situation as a slow burn epidemic, meaning TB remains endemic and persistent rather than suddenly explosive. Public health response. The Ministry of Health Malaysia is urging vigilance, particularly in crowded or poorly ventilated settings, such as Ramadan bazaars, because TB spreads through prolonged close contact. Authorities emphasize that TB spreads more slowly than influenza or COVID-19 and typically requires repeated exposure. Officials stress the importance of community awareness, early detection, proper cough etiquette, improved ventilation, and mask use for symptomatic individuals. The ministry has also confirmed TB medicine stocks are adequate and treatment services remain accessible. Local transmission. About 85% of reported TB cases involve Malaysian citizens, indicating that transmission is occurring primarily within local communities rather than being largely imported. How serious is it? TB in Malaysia is not an uncontrolled or explosive outbreak, but there is a clear and measurable rise in cases in early 2026. Because TB is endemic, ongoing transmission and new clusters can occur, particularly in settings involving prolonged close contact. The health system is actively monitoring and responding, with emphasis on prevention, screening, and treatment, rather than broad movement restrictions. Bottom line, the increase is serious enough to warrant national public health attention and community vigilance. However, it is not a fast-moving epidemic like influenza or COVID-19. And effective prevention, early diagnosis, and proper treatment remain the key tools to control its spread. Here is the tuberculosis TB situation in neighboring countries around Malaysia. Regional overview. The World Health Organization's Southeast Asia region carries one of the highest TB burdens in the world. It accounts for more than 1/3 of global TB cases. Incidence rates in parts of South and Southeast Asia remain well above the global average. Although treatment coverage has improved, the decline in new cases and deaths is slower than international targets require. High-burden neighbors, India has the largest number of TB cases globally, reflecting both population size and disease burden. While incidence and mortality have been gradually declining, overall case numbers remain high. Bangladesh is also classified as a high-burden country. TB remains a major public health issue, with significant reliance on large-scale detection and treatment programs. Myanmar reports high TB incidence, including drug-resistant TB. Health system constraints continue to affect detection and treatment capacity. Thailand maintains substantial case numbers, though steady progress has been made in reducing deaths and improving treatment access. Lower incidence neighbors. Singapore reports relatively low TB incidence compared with regional high-burden countries, though cases persist each year and surveillance remains strict. Brunei has comparatively small case numbers and sustained control measures, with overall lower incidence rates. Overall assessment, TB remains endemic across much of South and Southeast Asia. Some countries have achieved gradual declines in mortality and improved treatment success rates, but transmission continues. The region remains one of the global epicenters of tuberculosis, making cross-border vigilance, screening, and sustained public health investment essential. How serious is tuberculosis, TB? Tuberculosis is a potentially serious infectious disease caused by the bacterium Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It most often affects the lungs, but it can also impact other parts of the body, such as the brain, spine, and kidneys. TB spreads when an infected person coughs, sneezes, speaks, or sings, releasing tiny droplets that others can inhale. Not everyone exposed will become ill. People with strong immune systems can often contain the infection, but TB can be severe and life-threatening if untreated. Key points about seriousness: can be fatal if not treated properly. TB damages tissue in the lungs and other organs. Without appropriate antibiotic treatment, it can progress and lead to respiratory failure and death. Drug-resistant forms are harder to treat. Multidrug-resistant TB, MDR-TB, and extensively drug-resistant TB, XDR-TB, require longer, more complex treatment and have lower cure rates. People with weakened immunity are at high risk. This includes people with HIV, diabetes, malnutrition, or older adults. TB can be latent, infection without symptoms, or active, symptoms present and contagious. Latent TB can become active later if immunity weakens. Symptoms of active pulmonary TB include persistent cough, often with blood, fever, night sweats, weight loss, and fatigue. Why the Malaysian Ministry of Health is urging mask use? In the context of a reported rise in TB cases nationwide, the Health Ministry's advice to wear masks is a public health precaution to reduce transmission. Masks help block droplets that contain TB bacteria, so they can reduce the risk of spreading the disease from someone with active pulmonary TB. Other preventive measures include improving ventilation in crowded spaces, early detection and treatment of active cases, testing and treatment for people with latent TB who are at high risk of progression. If you're experiencing symptoms like a prolonged cough, more than 2 to 3 weeks, fever, night sweats, or weight loss, it's important to seek medical evaluation promptly. TB is treatable and often curable with the right antibiotic regimen when diagnosed early. Yes, there is a vaccine for tuberculosis. It is called the BCG vaccine, Bacillus calmette-guerin. It has been used for over 100 years and remains part of national immunization programs in many countries, including Malaysia. How effective is it? BCG is most effective in infants and young children. It protects well against severe forms of TB, such as TB meningitis and disseminated miliary TB. Its protection against adult pulmonary TB, the contagious lung form, is variable. In some populations, it offers moderate protection, in others less so. Is it given in Malaysia? Yes, Malaysia includes BCG in its routine childhood immunization schedule. It is usually given shortly after birth. Does it prevent all TB? No. It reduces the risk of severe disease in children, but does not eliminate the risk of infection or adult pulmonary TB. Public health measures such as early detection, Screening, contact tracing, good ventilation, and mask use remain important.